Welcome to the Human Frequency. It's been a little while since we've done an episode. We've been traveling a lot. We just got back from Unconscious Life Expo last week.
Yeah, that was fun.
It took about a week to recover from one day there. It was Sunday that we went in. We went to help out Dean Ryan and enjoy his lecture with Sean Stone. And actually, that was the best part of it for me, was being there for his lecture and selling some Orgonite to benefit Dean's work, because Dean works really hard, and I think he needs the extra support sometimes.
Yeah.
So we went there to help him out, and it was great. There were a lot of people there, thousands of people there, and it was kind of chaotic, and it's kind of weird energy. And I was actually kind of surprised at how weird it was. I mean, you noticed it too.
Yeah, I did. I actually want to start the story a little further back in that we tried to get a vending table at this event, and I'm thinking now it was just a sort of a divine intervention type thing, because we called them pretty well in advance, but we couldn't get anything.
Not well enough in advance. And
But
we
this
kind of
turned-
missed the boat.
But this turned out to be a blessing, because when we got there, I mean, think about it. 5,000, at minimum, 5,000 cell phones enclosed in a room, all going at once, plus the hotel Wi-Fi. It was just a nightmare.
Well, yeah.
It was a DOR cesspool in this hotel.
Well, that's what I noticed too. And so upon arrival, it was only maybe within the first hour that I started to really feel the ill effects of all that. And of course, I should have known in advance that that's what I was getting into, but I haven't been to anything like this in a while. The 5D event was much, much smaller. So although there was a lot of DOR and cell phones there, it was a tiny fraction of what's going on at Conscious Life. And we were at Contact in the Desert, but that's outdoors. So when you're outdoors, you're way less affected because that stuff's not bouncing off the walls.
Right. And also keep in mind that the first time we did go to Conscious Life was 3 years ago in 2014, and we were not yet aware of the EMF problem quite in the same way we are today, nor were we as sensitive to it.
You become more sensitive as you remove the DOR sources from your life.
That's right.
The deadly orgone radiation, in other words, deadly radiation immobilized life force. This is what Wilhelm Reich discovered. It's the opposite of the life force within us that makes us healthy. So when you're surrounded by it, most of the time, most people are not even going to notice it. The sensitive ones, they'll start to experience things like the headaches and other ill effects, dizziness. And
Irritability.
irritability
I think
is the
one.
big one. And that's the kind of thing that happens without you even noticing it. But when you become more sensitive by removing it, when you're around it, you really, really notice. And that was really what hit me the most at Conscious Life Expo. And we've got our reason for calling it the Unconscious Life Expo because a lot of it was just this heavy radiation, just terrible frequency fence. And everybody's there for a particular reason, which is to learn, to grow, and to expand consciousness. And when you're under such a frequency fence, it's literally impossible. I feel like
right.
a change of venue is necessary. Maybe not a hotel.
Maybe a less expensive situation too would be good. I mean, we were looking at the cost of not just getting into the event, but vending there. It's absolutely astronomical.
It is. And I think that creates a stressful atmosphere. So I noticed that one of my friends said that the vending area had a stressful vibe, a weird vibe to it. And I thought about that for 2 seconds, having looked at the prices of vending there, and I realized these vendors are probably stressed out. I mean, how are they going to make back the thousands of dollars they spent to be there? And the hotel expense and the food. Everything there is super expensive and super unhealthy.
Oh, God.
You got to bring your own food and water. It's really tough to eat in a hotel. It's just not healthy. So we have this very unhealthy environment, but you've got an expo going on, which is about raising consciousness. It's very,
It's contradictory.
it's contradictory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that too.
Yeah.
And, all of these things together just give it. That's why we call it the Unconscious Life Expo. I mean, there's so many factors here playing into creating this energy of this bad energy. It was really disappointing. But,
Well, yeah, I did enjoy listening to Dean Ryan and Sean Stone, and that's what we went there for.
Yes,
and Dean's a good friend.
We were very fortunate. Dean didn't have any merch with him, so he granted us his table, and after the event, we got swarmed.
Yes, we did. And we were able to use some of the proceeds to benefit Dean's work. So it helped us with our gifting work, and it helps Dean with his research and his work producing great radio programs and TV programs, all the stuff that he works on. So it had a good outcome. We also saw some really nice people and had a chance to network a little bit with others who are working in the field of consciousness. So it was cool to meet people.
But I don't think any vendor could make any amount of money to buy all of the hippies' deodorant.
Hey, the crystal. I highly recommend the salt crystal. It's that crystal deodorant that I use. You just put it under water. You apply it to your armpits. It's just salt, no aluminum. You still sweat. It doesn't do anything bad to your body, but it prevents the odor. I highly recommend the salt crystal. You buy one, it lasts a year. It's like $6, lasts a year. So to everybody out there who thinks you can't get a safe deodorant, I have the answer for you. It's the crystal. You will still sweat, though. So if you don't like sweating, you're going to have to apply poisonous aluminum to your armpits.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to smell, this one works great. So yeah, it would be nice to have a benefit for hippie deodorant, but really $6 for one salt crystal that lasts a year, I don't think it's too bad.
I don't think so either. But, all that DOR in the room is going to hold the BO in there. So it's just
Can't dissipate.
another element to the expo that was making it very unpleasant for everyone.
Well, I have to say, the cell phones, the extremely fast Wi-Fi, I mean, we did benefit. When I'm traveling, I use Wi-Fi because I need access. When I'm traveling, I use a cell phone because I need to communicate.
Believe me, if we had the option to plug in with an Ethernet cable, we'd use it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wi-Fi was super fast, super strong. It definitely affects people's minds. And 5,000 cell phones in one small space at a time. You cannot imagine what that would look like. If you could see the radiation, you would understand how dangerous it is. So we're being bombarded with this intense radiation, and it's exponential, by the way. The fluorescent lighting, CFL, compact fluorescent light bulbs, cell phones, Wi-Fi, all of these things are compounding upon each other. So in a consciousness event, you've got this intense frequency fence of radiation, which is designed to suppress consciousness. It's very, very difficult to survive in that electromagnetic soup.
It is. And also, those frequencies are addictive. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that people don't realize until they try and wean themselves off of it. Or maybe someone like you or me points it out to them, and they start waving their cell phone around, and they have the little EMF protector on it. I got news for you. The only solution is to get rid of these devices. People will they'll circle the wagon to defend their smartphones, but the only thing to do is to reduce as much as possible, and if possible, like it was for us, to get them out of your life.
Well, it's not out of my life completely. I use it when I travel, which is occasionally, maybe once a month, for an event, so that people could pay with credit cards. That's the sole reason I got the smartphone, was for that. And daily life, it's often wrapped in foil. So this brings me to my next cell phone point, which is the cell phone nightmares. Now, I don't know if you've experienced cell phone nightmares, but I certainly have.
Well, this happened not too long ago, and it happened again, and for the same reason.
Well, what happened was the other night, this is 2 nights ago, I had the cell phone out and forgot, because during the day I needed to turn it on to retrieve a phone number. And then I should have just turned it off, made my phone call, and wrapped it up in foil again, because what people don't understand is it's not just when the cell phone is on that it's emitting, it's actually even emitting in airplane mode and when it's off. And I've gotten questions about this, so I want to address it. The phone is putting out tracking information. The only way it can do that is through a signal. So even when it's off, that phone knows what time it is, it knows where it is. So it's always putting out data. And if you are somebody working in planetary healing or doing something important to help humanity, you will be targeted through the location data on that phone. They know where it is, and they can transmit through it into your mind. And that is a huge problem. It's not just the health aspects, but it's the mental aspects of the cell phone. So I retrieved my phone number, and then you suggested that I charge up the phone. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And then
You'd been using it a lot, and it needed to be charged
we
up.
were out of town with it, so yeah.
Where at home, we have the landline. There's no reason, once you got the number.
So I charged up the phone, totally spaced out on it, even though it was in airplane mode. It was sitting in the bathroom, charging. I went to sleep, had the weirdest dreams, demented dreams, disturbing. It wasn't so much the horrific nightmares that I had when I was a child, like of the nuclear explosions and the earthquakes and being in an elevator that's plummeting, through the building. And by the way,
Which almost happened.
the elevator. Another thing about conscious life is the elevators in the hotel were all broken. We almost got trapped in one. I flipped out. We hit the alarm. It was scary. It finally, very, very slowly made it. I've had elevator nightmares. I've had all kinds of horrific dreams. The dreams I had this time were not that level of horrific. They were anxiety dreams. I was pushed back 5 years ago in my consciousness to the time period when I didn't know about EMF, to when I had a cell phone and a Wi-Fi next to my head while sleeping. The dreams were just like that. Work dreams, anxiety dreams about being a background actor, which I used to be, otherwise known as an extra. Anxiety dreams about working for the psychopath in the art gallery and her giving me files to pour through, not understanding what was going on. Those kind of dreams. Getting a letter in the mail from my landlord from my last place that in my dream I was still renting and hadn't paid rent on in months, with letters all over it, like he wrote all over it, like, this has already gone to the rent department of the city of Carson. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what the rent department is, and I lived in Los Angeles, but this is dreams, so it doesn't make any sense. So it was all these anxiety dreams caused by a cell phone on, in airplane mode, in the next room, not wrapped in foil.
That's right. And I think this should put to rest now the ridiculousness of the commentary of anyone out there who thinks that it's fine just as long as it's off or in airplane mode, because it's not.
It's never
This has
fine.
happened to us twice now.
This is, to me, proof it's happened. Yeah, that's happened to me twice. I mean, the first time it happened, it was a whole week that I just spaced on it. And I had nightmares and bad sleep for a week, even with the Orgonite, even with the EMF canopy, because the Orgonite neutralizes the EMF. It makes it safer, but it doesn't get rid of it. So you may not have as many of the ill health effects. You may sleep better, and you do. I did sleep better with Orgonite, even with the cell phone and Wi-Fi in the early days before I knew to turn those things off. I did sleep better, but the thought forms that are put out in that frequency are still there, and that's what it's for. Don't fool yourself. These are mind control devices. They are designed, one, to physically impair your body and consciousness, and two, to put thoughts in your mind that are not your own. Don't delude yourself about what that is. If you're using a cell phone, I don't blame you for using it, because you need it when you're traveling around. You need it out in the world. A lot of people need it for work. But if you're using it for emails, for Facebook, for things that you could do at home when you're done with your day, you're overusing it.
That's right. And I think this goes back to the addiction and defensiveness that I was talking about earlier. And to finish up that point, just as you said, there is a responsible way to use this technology. And most people use it irresponsibly and suffer the consequences as a result of using it in that manner.
Most people don't even know it's a problem. And really, it's not even worth trying to explain it to most people, because they're not ready. People are ready when they're ready, and you know it. So I'm just explaining this to anyone who's open to the idea. And if you're not ready to stop using it, I understand. But it's just a word of caution that I advise reducing usage. Ken Rolla has a great video that I saw online about cell phone safety. How do you make your cell phone safe? Well, he has devices that help. He's got a little card that you put inside the battery compartment that we use that neutralizes the EMF a little. But he says, even though he sells the device, he says, you're better off not using the phone.
That's right. And we say the same thing. And we'll keep saying it and saying it over and over and over again until people start to understand. It's at this point, the humans are they're too energetically compromised to solve current problems. I do feel that intervention is required.
And this comes up a lot, actually. The New Age movement talks a lot about some race of aliens coming in and saving us, somebody coming in and doing the work for us. I understand why they say this, because the human beings really are just so far gone. It blows my mind sometimes. I have to attribute most of this to energetic assault. And you've got other things too, of course. You've got the GMO foods, you've got the fluoridated water, vaccines, heavy metals in the body that make it more conductive and more easily manipulated by electromagnetic fields. So there's this just assault from all directions on humanity. What gets me is how humanity doesn't recognize their own power to eliminate all of this danger and still is in such a state of distress and depression. But the fact is, that's where humanity is at right now. And I think most of this is from the mind control matrix.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't know that they can do anything. They're so bombarded with all this negative programming constantly. We're a traumatized race of beings, just traumatized. So yes, intervention is needed. But what I see happening is I don't see a race of aliens coming in and saving us. I see the very, very few humans that have recognized the biggest threat, which is the electromagnetic fields. Eliminating them and doing what they can to teach other human beings about this. And also distributing orgonite. Now, Lloyd Burrell, who was on our show early on, almost a year ago, he explained a lot about this, about reducing the EMF, and he's really helping a lot of people who are electrically sensitive. It goes so much even further than that. What he's done is so great, but I think that orgonite gifters are needed to turn the frequency fence, to take it down, and these orgonite gifters have to be in their power, and they cannot be energetically compromised.
That's right.
And there's very few people like this on the planet that are doing the work and are actually capable of doing this action of helping to save other humans.
Mm-hmm. I remember Commander William Riker in Star Trek at one point saying, if that happens, they will have learned nothing. So I think that perfectly explains why a race of aliens isn't just suddenly going to come down out of the sky and appear and solve all of our problems for us.
What was he referring to?
He was talking about the Ferengi in some way. That I know. But I do feel that the quote is applicable here because that's just not going to happen. We have to solve the problems. If we don't do that, we will have learned nothing.
Well, it's only a few humans right now that have rejected the poison. And there may be tribal groups out maybe in Africa that don't have access to the technology. And I say these human beings are very, very fortunate because they can still live in their indigenous ways and not be mind controlled by the frequency matrix. But then again, you got cell phone towers going up in all those places, which is where George Ritchell came in Africa, taking down the frequency fence there, because that's a continent that's so at the root of humanity. It's so much at where we began. It's where we began. So you still have indigenous cultures there, and in rainforests and around the world, there are different indigenous cultures still living in natural ways. But I see that there's an encroachment, even on those groups, where these towers are going in order to mind control them as well. But I do see that there's some humans that are still not energetically compromised by carrying around the poisonous device. We are taking the bait. We are taking the poison. What do you think you're holding there when you're carrying around that cell phone? Do you think this is good for you? You are taking a device into your pocket, into your handbag that was designed to track you and to mind control you. And you might think it's convenient because you can call people on it. If you're even doing that, you're probably texting, you're probably on Facebook. This device was designed to control you and to suppress you. Why carry it around? Why take the bait?
And everyone's doing it too, even those in the higher consciousness circles or who purport to be in those circles. This is a universal problem.
Well, I know many people of a higher consciousness level that are still carrying around the phones. And I don't doubt that these people are of higher consciousness because they've shown me that they are. but they're carrying around the phone. So anybody who's doing shamanic healing work or remote sessions that's doing them via a cell phone, and many people are, I'm not saying that they're not talented at what they do, and I'm not saying that they can't help you, but they're compromised. So if they were to do the sessions, let's say on a landline telephone or on a hardwired Ethernet computer with no Wi-Fi, you would get so much more out of it, and they would be able to do so much more healing work. I can't underestimate. I know I'm hammering this point like over and over again.
We both are.
I cannot underestimate the amount of damage that electromagnetic fields are doing to us. These literally are infiltrating our minds. That's why I know when I'm sleeping, if I've left the phone unwrapped, it's like a metallic tentacle that goes into your brain and reroutes everything. You've got a natural rhythm. You've got a natural resonance. 7.83 hertz.
The human frequency.
You've got a natural resonance. The Schumann resonance. The human resonance. And you've got these metallic, fast moving frequencies that have nothing to do with you going in and rerouting everything. That's why EMF causes cancer. It disrupts communication between cells in the body. Now, what it's doing to you physically, it's doing to you mentally. It is changing your thought patterns. And you know, the irritability that comes with it. Do you ever feel irritable for no reason and you lash out at someone you love and then afterwards you're like, what was I thinking?
All the time.
Not as much as we used to.
Right. But still, it's too much.
You know, when we were gifting recently in Orange County, and that was a really special Orgonite gifting trip. We went with Ann Maurer, who's been on our show before, and we traveled all around the northern part of Orange County gifting Orgonite. And the next day after gifting with Ann, we went out and did a little more work, and we found ourselves getting a little confused going into one parking lot where, you know, we wanted to bust a tower, but then there were tons of people in there because it was a church parking lot. It was very busy, and we realized, well, we can't bust this tower with all these people around because they'll see us. So but then we got kind of stuck in there. It was hard to get back out. It was hard to turn. Everyone was driving crazy, and we got irritable.
Well, what happened was we spent too long there. It took a long time to get out of the parking lot. Then we tried a side street. There wasn't any good place to put the Orgonite there. And then the light took forever getting out of the side street. Cumulatively, too much time passed. And
where were we? Underneath a cell tower the whole time.
Two of them, as we found out.
Yeah, we didn't know that at first.
No, we didn't. But that whatever is going on with one tower is amplified
by the other.
So
we started having a fight. We started getting annoyed with each other. I was annoyed at your driving, you know, and you were annoyed at me for telling you about your driving. So finally, we were so irritable. We pulled into the CVS parking lot and just sat there arguing for about 5 minutes. Then we both came to our senses and said, you know, we got to get out of here. We got these two towers. Well, we got this one tower beaming us. We didn't know there was two towers. We started to pull out of the lot. Then we saw the second tower, realized why we were fighting so much. Gifted the towers, drove on. Within minutes, we felt fine.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell are we arguing?
What happened? So that just goes to show you, look, these things are here for a reason. You know, don't delude yourself. You don't need that cell phone. You got by without it before. You don't need it now. If you need it here and there, that's fine. Please use the technology responsibly because, you know, one thing that we don't realize is how much we're contributing to environmental problems and our own demise through these. It's not just about our physical health and our mental health in our homes. We are actually contributing to the chemtrail program by using cell phones. Did you realize that we are actually contributing? This is not just them doing this to us. Mm-hmm. We have contributed and created this problem through our addiction to EMF.
And a point I want to make here is just to go back to cell phone towers for a moment before we close the books on that one. Cell phone towers exist exclusively for the creation and broadcasting of DOR. the function of communication is secondary. It's almost incidental. It's not the other way around, where it's about the communication and the DOR is just something that happens. No, it's the other way.
Absolutely. They are designed to harm, and quite a bit of the communication that's being done by them, by the way, is mind control. It's designed to make everyone crazy. It gives you the crazies. I'm telling you. I felt it. I've been around it. When we were gifting in Orange County, we had a couple instances like that on day one when we were with Anne. Towards the end of our day, we went into a nice park in the hills, and there was a tower in the park that needed to be gifted. I immediately started getting the crazies around this tower. I'm not kidding you. And my stomach started hurting. All this crazy stuff started happening because, they can track where you are. They know when their DOR sources are being compromised. And I can tell you they are parasitic, interdimensional ETs that have been controlling our Earth for eons. And when their DOR sources are being attacked and taken down, that pisses them off. So we did neutralize the tower, and we did neutralize a hilltop array. And as we left, the symptoms started to dissipate.
It doesn't just piss them off, though. It hurts them.
Yeah, you really are. You're literally taking them out. This is war.
Yes.
This is war. This is huge. This is etheric warfare.
And the only way that etheric warfare can be fought is by, guess who? Etheric warriors.
Exactly.
It's not going to come from some BS that someone is purporting, some alliance. Oh God, we found this article the other day. We have to talk about this.
Our friend Carmen Grammer, who's also been on the show before, talking about the weather war in Los Angeles. She sent over an article about David Wilcock speaking about an alliance. I don't know. What is this alliance? First off, I want to ask.
BS is what it is.
Is it? Or does David Wilcock know about us? Are we the alliance? And Carmen even suggested, are we the alliance? Because who is doing the work? Is etheric warriors, organite makers. There are human beings doing the work. Are we the alliance, or is this some alien
human
alliance?
beings? Here's what's going on. And again, you have to use your own discernment here and just listen to all stories and decide for yourself what's true and what's not. I'm just going to say what the truth is because I'm not hiding anything. I don't have a career that I need to perpetuate. And this just needs to be said. What's going on here is that humans are starting to fix the problems, and humans and only humans will be able to continue that. Remember what I said earlier about that this alien race is not going to descend from the sky and just solve our problems for us? It doesn't work that way.
They have a prime directive, like on Star Trek.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
We talk about Star Trek a lot.
That's because Star Trek is the true story.
Yes, it is. And here's the true story. Humans are going to continue to fix the problems. There is no alliance. That is preposterous. It is nonsense. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people out there who are creating disempowering narratives, counter narratives to throw at people, and that is either misinformation or disinformation. And the only difference between those two is intention. Mm-hmm. And I'm not this episode is not to determine whether something is one or the other. That's for you to decide. All I know is that one narrative is empowering, and that's the narrative we stick to, and the other is not.
Well, we can't rely on someone else, and that's what this other narrative is about. The disempowering narrative. It's the pharmaceutical industry of consciousness. That's what this is. That's why people keep going back for more and more and more, because there are many people talking about problems and offering just the tiniest little bit of information at a time. Well, why do you think that is? Because you'll have to keep going back again and paying those ticket prices again and again and again. These tickets aren't cheap.
That's right.
These people live in Topanga Canyon, okay? Anyway, not naming any names, but there are many of these people that have careers that are based on talking about problems in the world, offering little tiny bits of information at a time, and usually attributing the solution to an alien race and not giving the humans the power or the credit they deserve. I mean, I've even spoken to somebody recently where I mentioned taking down the frequency fence in the Northwest with 500 pieces of Organite and immediately having the drought just come to a shattering close. I mean, it already was ending for years. I don't care if people say that El Nino never came and it didn't rain last year. El Nino never came because El Nino is a hoax. There's no
right.
such thing as El Nino.
And it did rain
And
a
it
lot.
rained like crazy last year. And, trillions of gallons of water fell. 10 trillion gallons of water
That
fell,
was the estimate. Yeah.
fell last week in California. Well, guess what? This was in the LA Times back in December of 2014. 10 trillion gallons of water fell in California, and they had an article about it. So it's BS that it hasn't been raining. It's been raining since Organite started getting distributed around California. And this year, the drought ended just like unbelievably, like you cannot even dispute it. 10 feet of snow at a time in the Sierras. We had inches and inches of rain in Southern California. Records were shattered all over Southern California last week. Records that have been in place since the 40s in some places. Mm-hmm. I have this all on my website, by the way. This is all linked to, I've got it on the Tumblr blog, and I'll be posting the articles on my website as well, so you can see these great rain records that were set. Now, I had someone tell me, oh, there was other things at work here. Well, yeah, of course you could say that, because how do we prove that it was Organite that did it? Well, you can't prove it. All I can do is show over and over and over again that we distribute it and rain comes. We distribute it to a new place and rain comes. It doesn't even matter what climate.
Yep.
It happens everywhere.
Same thing over and over and over again. That's the scientific method. What's not the scientific method is just ascribing it to some mystical nonsense. I can't stand that.
I can't stand it either. And no, the ETs are not going to save us. They're watching us. I see UFOs very often. And I've even gotten some footage of them. And you can see some of this at my Vimeo page, The Kembo. It's vimeo.com/The Kembo. I saw a really, really wild one recently over here in the mountains. And I got a pretty good close-up shot of it. And they're around. I know that there's alien activity all over the earth. I am seeing that they can't do anything really for us. They have to let us evolve. And I also recently learned about George Adamski and his interactions with the Venusians. They wouldn't let him on the ship at first. It took a long time before they would even meet him because humans are not ready to learn all this at once. We need to evolve and expand our consciousness before we're going to have any contact with our intergalactic family. It's just the way it is.
I have a question for our listeners. How many of these members of the Controlled Opposition Committee, which I call now COC, how many of them,
It's good.
really endearing, how many of these people talk about EMF? How many of them talk about the cell phone problem? How many of them talk about the toxicity of wireless devices? Any?
Not many. Not many at all. And whenever somebody does talk about this stuff, I try to have them on the show. I like to research their work. People like Lloyd Burrow, but he's not a new age guy. He's a guy that was just a normal guy that discovered that he was electrically sensitive. So in the new age movement, you're not going to see much of this. And I think a lot of this, again, goes back to the pharmaceutical industry of consciousness. Keeping us sick so we keep coming back. These tickets are very, very expensive to these events.
Believe me, we know.
We know.
We do our research. And we do it on a laptop, not on a cell phone, by the way.
And it's Ethernet connected, no Wi-Fi. And it's very peaceful living in an Ethernet house. It's very peaceful having a hardwired home with no smart meter, no cordless phone, no cell phone. It's wonderful. No smart TV, none of that. Oh, and by the way, I just want to say, we're going to do an episode about this later, but I do want to say that all of this technology is available to us hardwired. We do not need to submit to the Wi-Fi world. And I want to do a whole episode on how we've hardwired our house and even how you can watch Netflix on your TV without a Wi-Fi connection. So we'll get more into that later.
And even better, you don't have to submit to anything.
You really don't. Well, we're living men and women. And
that's right.
But
that's
another episode.
That's
too.
a topic for another episode. Yeah, I was just gonna say, but I want to now shift a little bit and talk about, because we were talking about people think that we're just going to be saved from everything, and the one thing we've been dealing with a lot lately is people wondering why they're still seeing chemtrails, Why am I still seeing them? I have all this orgonite. Why am I still seeing chemtrails? Why won't they stop spraying? And
Why won't they stop spraying
Yeah.
that's the question indeed. They can't stop. They can't and they won't.
Well, you have a little analogy that I think is very helpful to people. And just this should be, take the time now to tattoo this on your forehead so that you don't forget. Chemtrail spraying is like a computer program. It's not being done for any other reason other than that is the byproduct of the EMF sources nearby.
Absolutely. That is perfect because everybody's hung up on the heavy metals. I get so many emails about people worried about the spraying. And I understand. I understand the worry. Believe me, I've been there. And I always can offer some helpful advice. But most of all, the main advice I can offer to you is to know that the heavy metal spraying is just a small part of this energetic war. This is an energetic war. This is a total, like, mind-warping experience when you really understand what's going on here. We are literally living in a computer-generated hologram. Now, I'm saying literally, maybe it's not literal, maybe it's all mental, but what it is it is a hologram, and it's very much like a computer program. Now, this goes back to the cell phone tower matrix. What is it there for? Mind control. What is it putting over us? A frequency fence. How can we have a clear head when we're living under a frequency fence? This is why we neutralize every cell tower with orgonite. Ideally, those towers wouldn't be there at all. In a perfect world, there'd be no EMF, but there is. In a world with EMF, you're going to have chemtrails. It's not mutually exclusive. So everybody thinks that we're being sprayed. Yes. However, if you neutralized every cell tower, that stuff wouldn't stick because it's heavy metals and we're dealing with electromagnetic, energetic warfare. So that is the big fixation. It's the heavy metals. And all of the controlled opposition in geoengineering will tell you you're being sprayed with metals like a bug. And they'll fixate on it. And since they don't explain that this is actually an energetic war, they just talk about spraying, they're missing most of what's going on, and they're not going to be able to offer you a solution.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of those groups, is to not offer you a solution so that you focus on these chemtrails. Now,
how do you hack the chemtrail matrix, though?
Yes.
That's what we need to do. We need to hack the program.
That's right, because it doesn't matter how much orgonite you have, you will still see them doing the spraying. However, when the sources of toxicity are neutralized, they will start to look different. And we highly recommend looking at the bottom of your screen and going to that website, our website, thechembo.com, and going to the photo gallery and taking some time, a good amount of time, to familiarize yourself with what these toxins look like when they're being dismantled, when they're being cleaned up, when they're being removed. Because you'll still see them. That doesn't mean anything other than the computer program's still running.
Of course.
It's a computer program.
You're
That's what it
hacking
does.
it.
That's what it does. It runs indiscriminately of anything external. It just runs. We just clean. That's what goes on here.
Right. The chemtrail program, it's a multidimensional, interdimensional, extraterrestrial program. And you're never going to hear this from the controlled opposition. They're going to focus on the UN, an unconventional shade of gray. UN, unconventional.
Yeah.
They're going to say, this is the UN. This is your government. Your government. Beg your government to stop. The United Nations and the United States are business entities. Whether or not they're spraying chemtrails is irrelevant to us because no one can interfere in business. Business is business. It's all contractual. Now, no one need be in contract with any of these entities. However, because business is business and no entity can regulate another, you're never going to get one to stop one from doing this. And let me take it one step further. This is not the United States or the United Nations doing these programs. This is an interdimensional extraterrestrial interference on our Earth to suppress and destroy and feed. They are putting us under attack, energetic attack, to keep us depressed, to keep us crazy and angry, and they feed off of that, and they attach to your lower chakras, and they absorb all that. That's their food.
That is absolutely correct. And even before we proved this through our work, which we've demonstrated on the website and the blog, Wilhelm Reich proved it over 60 years ago, and it still continues to this day.
Well, Wilhelm Reich was trying to figure out why there was drought. And he traced it back to artificial sources, that it was induced by deadly orgone radiation, DOR, which is the immobilized life force, is what he found. And in our day, we refer to this usually as EMF, because that's what it is. But it also can be nuclear radiation. In his time, that was a lot of what it was the nuclear bomb tests were causing these problems. So you've got this immobilized energy, stagnant energy, and you can't have rain, and the sky will look polluted. He saw stuff that is like smog and geoengineering way back then. And in his time of researching why this was happening, he found UFOs, and he found that they retreated just as the DOR dissipated and the rain came. He found craft in the sky that were repelled by the life energy, and he found that they could very well be the source of the death energy. This was in contact with space. We too have had contact with space through this work. Once you start using the life force energy, you will have contact with space. I get emails from people who are seeing UFOs once they start using Orgonite. I've gotten pictures from people who are seeing them. So we are really dealing with an interplanetary war that's been going on for eons, and Reich discovered it because he was looking for answers. Now, before his time, when humans were primitive, how would we discover this? How could we even know? We were so primitive. But as our technology develops, we become more capable of understanding higher technology. And then we start to realize, yes, there's technology beyond what we know. A lot of people attribute this to the government having technology that we're not being told about. That technology came to them from parasitic extraterrestrials that they made deals with. That was something that I learned from that RT interview with Paul Hellyer, the Canadian Defense Minister, who disclosed all of this information about the agreements made. Now, if if the government, the United States, has this technology, they got it from the ETs, and they are hiding it from us, I don't think that everything we're seeing up there is government stuff. I see too much unexplainable stuff going on out there. And there's also the energetic aspect of the communication received. I mean, we're being communicated with. The contact with extraterrestrials, it's not like they come knock on your door and say, hey, we're ready to meet you now. It doesn't work that way. Most of it is happening on an etheric level. Yes. And the contact I've had with them has been mostly negative ETs that I've done battle with, etherically, and expelled etherically. And I literally think we're killing them.
Yes. So please stop contacting us and asking us about disclosure, all right? Because it's nonsense. You're going to believe what the government's telling you? That is a complete distraction and a diversion.
And also, why would they tell you? I mean, they're a business. They don't have to disclose anything.
That's right.
Their business is their business. And our businesses are not in contract with them. Why would they have to disclose anything? It's all business. Nothing's personal.
That's right. So stop talking about chemtrails.
Well,
and stop talking about HAARP too while you're at it. You know, HAARP gets a lot of press. HAARP is basically irrelevant. It's more about these cell phone towers everywhere, in your neighborhood, in your family's neighborhood, in your friends' neighborhoods.
Well, HAARP does something. I think that HAARP could be neutralized with an earth pipe and a couple of tower busters. I really think so, because the life energy is so much stronger than the death energy. But anyway, it's all about neutralizing these sources, and most of them are right down the street from you. So something in Alaska, look, HAARP is doing something. The cell phone tower on your corner is doing way more.
That's right.
And Brian Besko from TwistedSage.com, who was on our show a couple of times, he brought up the idea that the chemtrail program was something that we actually brought about through our consciousness. This is a very interesting point to me because it goes back to the whole computer program aspect, the whole mind control aspect. Many people experience chemtrails worse than others. Now, I do still talk about chemtrails, but I don't focus on them because they're just the visual aspect of an energetic war. Many people who are in Los Angeles see terrible chemtrails while I see blue skies. Why are we seeing different things? You've got to start to think about the interdimensional and consciousness aspects of the geoengineering, and that we may all be seeing different worlds. We need to elevate our consciousness.
We need to hack the chemtrail program with our minds.
With our minds.
To bring it back to that point you were talking about earlier, we need to do that ourselves. Chemtrails are caused by EMF, and we are all contributors. We must remove the EMF sources from our homes. Like you said, Sharon, we've taken the bait. We're like a rat, a lab rat. Not an old lab rat.
No, definitely not an old lab rat.
Another disinformant on YouTube, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know.
Please, Plasterite, give me a break. Okay,
So tired of hearing about that one too. That's another episode. We'll talk about that. But
we'll tear that one apart.
yeah, but yeah, chemtrails are a computer program, and you must hack that program with your mind. And you must do it. No one's going to do it for you. Begging someone else to do it ain't going to work.
Well, you're also like a computer yourself. We are like living biological computer processors. Now, this is not to promote a transhumanist agenda, but our mind is like a computer. And we are able to mold and shape our world through consciousness. The way that we are going to eliminate chemtrails is to elevate our consciousness and increase our vibration to where we have a world without chemtrails. It's so much about the mind. And that is when you mentioned the EMF causes the chemtrails, and the EMF also is causing mind control, think about the relationship. You can't look at one without looking at the other.
That's right. It's
Everything's
reciprocal.
interconnected. So many people have connected the dots. Another great guest we had on our show, Jim Mars, who is a good friend. He wrote Population Control. He connected all the dots of the different ways our population's controlled. He mentioned the different poisons, the pharmaceutical industry. He mentions electromagnetic fields. I'm really happy he does that. He put it all together. But, once you've put it all together, you gotta go even further with it. And you've got to change your mind. You've got to understand that every single attack is interconnected and one cannot be looked at without another. That's why I do appreciate those that connect the dots.
Yes, and you're not going to be able to do that right away. It takes time. It's a process, and everyone is on a different timeline. So it's about doing things at the correct pace and having compassion and understanding for others that are on different timelines. And we will be bringing some of that compassion and understanding north with us to Reading to do a public talk on March 19th for the NorCal Dowsers.
I'm very excited about this talk. This is going to be a chance to do an advanced workshop on orgone energy because the NorCal Dowsers already know about it, and they already have a chembuster that they share amongst themselves. So this is a chance, if you're in the Reading area and you want to know more, this is going to be an advanced workshop on how to be an effective etheric warrior and how to hack this mind control matrix, how to hack the geoengineering program. We're going to take it all down, and going to Reading is a perfect place to do it because that's ground zero up there. We looked at the rain map. Did you notice how much less rain that area had than everywhere else during this last bout of storms?
I did notice that, and of course the rain maps are downplaying it, but Reading is ground zero, not just for that reason, but because Dane Wigington is up there and he has spread his fear and non-solutions around for far too long, and that has got to be undone, and solutions have to be brought to the people of Northern California so that they can start taking responsibility and eliminating the electrosmog in their area.
And Mount Shasta is a chakra point of the earth. It's a very special place. So we're very excited to come up to Reading on March 19th and hope to see you there. Please check out our website, thechembo.com, to keep up with our news on ending the weather war in California. I've also got some great articles on mind control, understanding the mind control matrix. I've started putting more of that stuff up on there. And The Orgonite section has all your answers. Everything you want to know about making your own Orgonite, it's there. The tutorial video and many, many other links and websites.
And we will be tower busting on our drive up to Reading, so for those of us who are going to our shop on Etsy, please bear with us. We will put up what we can, but we must be reserving a lot of tower busters to neutralize them on the way up there. So
We've done over 4,000 tower busters now in California and Oregon and counting. So that's the goal, is a few hundred more.
That's right. So please come to our website. Thank you for joining us today on The Human Frequency. We will see you next time.